My name's Scott Heron and welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about the first study on the Grade 1 cello exam by Trinity, which is called Back to Bach. So for those of you that haven't heard of Bach, he is one of the great composers of classical music, and he lived during what's called the Baroque period, or Baroque as the Americans call it. He is one of my personal favourite composers, and he wrote some of the most sublime music for the cello. In fact, his 6 suites for the cello are one of the pillars of the cello repertoire. So why has it got that title? Well, to me, it sounds a little bit like the prelude to the 3rd suite that he wrote for solo cello, which is in C major. So that piece goes like this. Something like that. It's really majestic, it's wonderful, and it makes a really big impact. And it has a descending C major scale. Like that. And this piece also starts in that vein, just as in the beginning, except it doesn't go all the way down. It finishes here, but it still goes a bit down scale anyway. So enough of a connection. So what are the main issues in this piece? It deals with tone and phrasing. So the piece is in 4/4, so 4 crotches in a bar. It has 8 bars, so there are 2 phrases of 4 bars each. So when I start, I think all the way to the end of the 4th bar. Think of yourself like a singer. Try singing it, and ask yourself where you would take your first breath. I imagine it would be at the end of the 4th bar. So in your mind's eye, that's where you got to be projecting yourself and aiming. So each note that you play isn't like an island. Da 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 da. It's da 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 dee da 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 da. So they're all connected like a row of pearls on a lovely necklace. So think of it like that. So you have 2 4-bar phrases. And what about the tone that they're mentioning there? Well, it really sounds fabulous if you play it with a big tone. So what I did before I started this video was I warmed up. And what I do before any occasion that I'm going to play is I warm up. So probably one of the top warm-ups that I do is called the 8-6-4 exercise, and it's by a cellist called Christopher Bunting, who was the teacher of one of my cello teachers. And he taught at the Royal College of Music in London. And check out one of my videos on that very study. So what you do is, in a nutshell, is you play for 8 ticks down bow, 5 ticks up, then 6 ticks down bow, 6 up, and then 4 down, and then 4 up. And you get used to what are called sound points, so where your bow plays in relation to the bridge. So at the beginning of this piece, I've warmed up. It'll sound something like this. So we want that sort of lovely, rich, big, mellow cello sound rather than a sort of a wispy, superficial. So that 8-6-4 warm-up exercise helps you to get in touch with your back muscle and then let all of the natural arm weight from your arm just sink into the string so that you make a lovely, big, juicy, mellow cello tone like that. Really, really gorgeous. So that's what you're aiming for, and that's what the examiner will be listening out for. Okay, so what about dynamics? Well, it starts off MF and it remains MF or moderately loud until the end of the piece, where there's a diminuendo which goes down to piano. So piano just being soft. So watch out for that. So what is the vibe of this piece? I always think it's good to start off with a very clear idea in your head of what you're trying to aim for. So in my mind, I'm thinking of a rather pompous, joyous Bach. I don't think Bach was pompous at all. I think he was a very humble man. But in my imagination in this piece, I'm thinking of someone who's maybe slightly overweight, quite pompous and joyful as well, jovial. I think is a good word. So, or you could perhaps, it could be majestic. You know, the thing is, it's your imagination. You can come up with something yourself, but to me, that sort of gives you the right sort of feeling. So use your own imagination, come up with something yourself. And to me, that helps me to get the feeling of weight as well. You know, thinking of, I remember I heard a really good cellist say, I think it was Heinrich Schiff, if you want to play with a really big fat sound, think of somebody who's really, really overweight. And, you know, try and use your imagination and try and feel that you're really, really overweight as well. And it just gives you the most, I don't know how it works, but it just really helps me to relax and release all of the weight in my arm and just pump that sound out. So your imagination is an amazing tool. Now, I like to start this piece off with a really good attack. So I'm going to use an accent. So there isn't an accent in marked, but I quite like doing one. I suppose it's because I like doing that on the first note of the prelude of the third suite that I mentioned ago. So so you're starting with a right hook, like that sort of thing, rather than sort of creeping in smoothly. I mean, you could play it very flat, which is okay. I just think it sounds really, really boring. But I think it's more musical to do an attack. So you can, to do an attack, you can do one the old-fashioned way, just press in and then release and get a little attack like that. Or what you can do is you can do what I call a delayed attack. I've never heard anybody call it that, but that's what I call it. So you're going like this, like that, that sort of feeling. So I think it has that sort of vibe rather than a boom. I think that sounds too much of an attack, but I think it sounds better than just a flat than that. So you can think about that. What about the articulation? There are slurs in bar 2 and bar 6, so watch out for those. So, and then in bar 5 or bar 6, there's a slur there. Now that's a little bit tricksy because you've got a string crossing, so you're going from the G to the D and then back again to the G string. So that's tricky. I mean, you could be really, really fancy pants and in bar 6 go up into higher second position, and then go back into third position. So shift. But I doubt that very many of you at grade 1 standard would be able to do that. So I think I would just stick to and try not to let that cheeky D stick out. So we don't want this like that. Try and make it as smooth as a Cadbury's caramel. So prepare your arm before you do in slow motion. So I'm preparing, and then I'm preparing the down bow before I play it. See the way my elbow is moving before I make the bow change. So that's what I mean by preparing. Another good idea is the oil. So Stephen Isserlis talks about the oil, and Stephen Doan as well. So two wonderful cellists. So to do the oil, what you do is this really applies to bar 3 and 4. Start on a down bow at the heel and move your head to the right like this. And then as you go towards the tip, move your head to the left. So this sort of movement here. So that's the oil. So that feels absolutely wonderful. So what happens is that you probably can't see it on the video, but I feel my whole back elongating. It feels really, really powerful, and there's a lovely feeling of pushing and pulling. So on the down bow I'm pulling, and on the up bow I'm pushing, and there's a feeling of contouring motion, a bit like whenever you go swimming and you're doing the breaststroke, you're doing that sort of thing. So one arm's going this way and the other arm's going that way. It's that sort of feeling that you have. So those two bars are going to sound like this. That sort of feeling there. one other thing to consider is to make sure that you use enough bow for the crazy quavers. So in bar 1 in particular, we sometimes, you know, when you play quavers, we tend to just skate over them a little bit. We think, oh, they're just tiny little notes. But try and make them really broad. You know, they have actually asked you to play this piece smoothly, or legato would be the fancy Italian term for that. So look how much bow I use in the quavers. Work really, really hard. Look how much bow I'm using for every quaver, you know, round about that. So, you know, really push yourself. I also use an idea called the figure of 8. So watch out for my video on that subject, the figure of 8. So what you're doing is, on the down bow, your elbow's in, and the up bow goes out like that. So do you see the 8? There's the 8. And then your elbow goes up. So that gives you the most wonderful feeling of pushing and pulling as well. And it helps to make the notes really, really legato and linked together, rather than just sawing right to left and right to left, like this. But milking every single note, making the most wonderful mellow cello sound. So yes, in the last bar, make sure you don't do a writ. I played with a metronome, which was good, which prevented me from doing that. But if I didn't have the metronome, I might want to do a writ. It feels musical to me, but they haven't asked you to do it. So I would try and refrain from doing a writ, even if you feel the urge. So what is a writ? Well, it stands for ritardando, which just means to become gradually slower. So it's like this. So just keep it in time at the very end. And let that note at the very end, lift your bow off the string, let the note ring a little bit, and hold it there for a couple of seconds, and then relax. So don't keep your bow on the string like that, because that kills the sound. And don't just whip your bow off the string as soon as you finish the note. So lift your bow off the string, slow your bow down, lift and hold for about 2 seconds, and relax. As soon as you lift the bow off the string, you finish the magic. And then the examiner can just breathe a sigh of relief and go, top marks, well done, like that. So what about the fingering for this? So we're in the key of C major, so we've got third finger in the bottom 2 strings. And then on the top 2, a 2 and a 2. So, and watch out for that. Those are the main things I think that we talked about then. So yes, well, all that remains to say is have fun with this piece. It's a really, really nice study. It's so much fun to play. I love playing Bach. That reminds me of Bach. So have fun, enjoy it, and remember to ace that exam. Cello!